Hey everybody, we are so excited that you are thinking about exploring Maquoketa Caves State Park. After we took our kids to Maquoketa Caves, they have been wildly disappointed by every other cave system that we've brought them to. And it's not because Maquoketa Caves is the largest cave system or even that it has the coolest features. The reason that we love Maquoketa Caves so much is that you get to be the guide. You get to explore this park on your timetable and your adventure level. And we think you are absolutely going to love it. So join us as we go over the trip guide through Outdoor Adventures Made Easy. In the trip guide, we will go over the caves map, various route options, a quick caves and features overview, what to pack, and bonus trip tips. In the trip guide, we included our own park map. When you're actually at the park, we recommend that you use the DNR park map. But for the sake of the guide, we wanted to be sure to include two different features that are not actually listed on the DNR park map that we highly recommend. And that would be Bat Passage and our own self-named Fat Man's Misery. So you'll definitely see those in the trip guide and you'll see those as different parts of routes, but they won't be on the actual DNR park map. So don't let that confuse you. In the trip guide, we also have a table which includes all of the different caves and features of the park and whether or not you could explore that cave through walking, crawling, or a squeeze. Within the trip guide, we have 3 different route options based off of what you are looking for. If you're interested in the beginner route, we have one for you. This would be for anyone who's newer to caving or spelunking, or anyone who's past their days of crawling into caves. We actually used this route when our youngest was an infant and I was carrying her on my front, and then our older 2 were 3 and 4 years old. This was their first caving experience and they absolutely loved it. Next up is the adventurous route. This is the route that we recommend for anyone who wants to hit all of the technical caves with the crawling and tight squeezes. When we don't have a ton of time, this is the route that we prefer to do because it's the most challenging and the most fun. At the bottom of this page, there's 2 different caves that we kind of pulled out and highlighted, which are Y Cave and Steelgate Passage. The reason we pulled these 2 out is sometimes they're a little bit trickier to find, especially Steelgate Passage. It's better signed than it used to be, but I remember the first time we tried to find this cave, this passage, we went past it several times before we finally figured out where it was. So at the bottom of this page, both Y Cave and Steelgate are pulled out and highlighted so you can have an easier time finding these 2 caves, which happen to be our 2 favorite challenging caves and passages. Next up is the Explore Every Cave route. And you guessed it, this is for those who want to explore every single cave. This is our preferred route when we hit every single cave with breaks that show you where's probably the best time to head back up to your vehicle, kind of maybe have lunch, refuel a little bit, and then head back down for the next section. Next is the Caves and Features overview, which has more information about each cave and feature specifically. If you are more of a visual person, be sure to check out the trip overview, which has actual footage of our crew exploring each of the caves and features themselves. If you are planning to hit Y Cave and Steelgate Passage, these are 2 that I highly recommend you check out our recommendations before hitting these because they do have more technical areas and a couple warnings that I think are important that you know before you head to each of those. For this trip, gear can be broken down into what you should wear and what you should pack. As far as what to wear, when we go to Maquoketa Caves State Park, we love to explore every nook and cranny of the park, not worrying about if we're going to get muddy or wet. So we like to wear old clothes. And I'm telling you, the mud at Maquoketa Caves State Park is the next level of sticky. So sometimes if I have clothes that I know my kids are going to outgrow and they're so bad we can't even donate them to Goodwill, I'll have them wear those clothes to the park and then we'll literally just throw them away when we're done. But for me, when I wear my clothes, I like to wear a long sleeve shirt and long pants. The caves are somewhere between 45 and 55 degrees year round. So when you're in them, not only do you want a little bit of extra protection, especially if you're crawling around, but you want to stay nice and warm. As far as footwear goes, we like to either wear tennis shoes that have a good grip or hiking boots. So not only do you want a closed-toed shoe to protect your toes and keep your feet warm, but you need a really good grip. The rocks here are really slippery, and you want to make sure when you're caving that you always have a good grip. So this is probably the number one thing I would recommend that you bring to Maquoketa Caves State Park, especially if you're doing the crawling and the tight squeeze type caves. I remember the first year that I brought my husband to Maquoketa Caves, and I brought a helmet for myself and him, and he kind of chuckled and said, "I'm not going to wear a helmet." And he got into the first cave and he hit his head on the really hard rock, and then he asked for the helmet, and we've never looked back since. We have always wore helmets when we're at Maquoketa Caves State Park, and we've never regretted it. On the helmets, we either just strap a headlamp or we just duct tape a flashlight on. I wouldn't go out and buy any special helmets. I would just use the bike helmets that you already have. What to actually pack? As far as going into the caves, I recommend that you bring either a really small backpack or a fanny pack. My preference is actually a fanny pack because it's not going to limit you as you're crawling around, and the backpack can be one more thing to drag around. In either the fanny pack or the small backpack, I would recommend that you have a small first aid kit, an extra flashlight, snacks, a pocket knife, and if you can fit, just a small water bottle that every time that you go back to your vehicle, you're just refilling this for your group or your family. And if you can fit all of that and your park map, and if you have any medications or an inhaler that you think you need to bring with you, pack that into your fanny pack or your small backpack, and then you're ready to go to the caves. So that's what you should bring with you to the caves, but there's lots of stuff that you should actually pack and leave in your vehicle. Some important things would be bug spray, sunscreen, and a lunchbox with all sorts of snacks, extra food, and drinks. All of that stuff is really important things to pack, but here's something that I would never go to Maquoketa Caves without. And that is, for every single person that goes with me, I have a Walmart or just a plastic bag, and inside that bag, I have a dry pair of shoes, and I have a change of clothes. So when they get done caving for the day, I have a bag ready for them that I can just hand them. They don't have to dig through the suitcases or anything in our vehicle. They can take off all of their muddy, wet clothes, put it in this bag, and now they have dry shoes and dry clothes to put on. Now, I'm not joking. This stickiness of this mud is like crazy. So I'm also extra thorough now, and I also bring a plastic tote. So inside the van, I have the plastic tote, and then for each person, I have a bag of clean clothes. When they get done at the caves, they change into their clean clothes, put their dirty clothes in here, and then all the dirty stuff goes into the plastic tub, and it's not getting mud all over my vehicle. Here are a few extra trip tips when you're headed to Maquoketa Caves State Park. Number 1, you are entering a fragile environment. Even the cleanest tans still have oils present on them. So if you touch a growing formation, those oils will actually stick to the formation, and the calcite-rich water that's actually growing those awesome formations can't stick to it because of the oiliness of the residue that was on your hands. So be sure that when you're exploring these caves that we aren't leaving an imprint on these caves and changing them. Stalactites grow tight to the ceiling, stalagmites grow from the ground, and all of these formations grow at about 1 inch every 100 years. That's pretty slow, so we need to make sure that we are doing a good job of respecting this amazing environment. Number 2 tip is avoid the weekends. Maquoketa Caves State Park does not have a very large parking lot. They have recently expanded it, and there is an overflow parking lot. But not only can parking get crazy, the park itself. You don't want to be waiting outside of a cave for your turn to use it. And it's always nice to be using these different caves and kind of having them to yourself. So if at all possible, I would avoid the weekends and try going midweek. Be sure to enjoy these areas outside of the peak summertime as well. because that is typically when the most users are at the park. Number 3 is always cave with at least one other person. Not only does it make your adventure more fun, but in case an emergency would happen, you need to have somebody else who can get help for you. And that wraps up our trip guide. We hope that this guide gives you the tools to feel comfortable heading to Maquoketa Caves State Park and being your own guide. You are absolutely going to love your adventure there. We hope that this creates an outdoor adventure made easy. Looking for more adventures in the Midwest? Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.